In this tutorial, you will learn how to create a vintage college football shirt design, and as you can tell by the thumbnail, I will be featuring my alma mater, Florida State University. My name is Ashley, and I am a full-time graphic designer, and I have 10 years of professional design experience. So in addition to doing YouTube on the side, I am also a full-time graphic designer. Without further ado, we're hopping right into this tutorial, and let me just say this: yes, I am still pissed off about the whole CFP we should have been in, but hey, that's neither here nor there. So without further ado, let's hop right on into this here tutorial. The first thing you want to do is create a new document. For this example, I will be using 15 by 20, 300 resolution, and RGB color mode. Create a solid color background, and I'm using the color black. Type out the name of your school, and mine is Florida State. Change your font to Sheepman bold. And my font size will be 168. Change the color to CEB 888. And now I'm just moving this over here to the center. And change the spacing to 20. Now for the vertical scale, change it to 130%. And then for each letter on the end, after making all the letters all caps, highlight each letter at the end. And I'm going to change this size to 188. And then I will alter the baseline shift to -17. And then I will do this for the E on the other side as well. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to warp our text. I will be selecting arc, and I will decrease the bend slightly. And then I will change my vertical distortion to about 2 and click OK. Now I'm going to duplicate this layer. And I will put this duplicated layer at the bottom of my original layer and right click, convert to smart object. And I'll make it invisible for now. Now return to your original text layer and double click it so that it brings up the layer styles. What we're going to do first is we're going to start off with bevel and emboss. Change the style to inner bevel, and depth will be 688. Change the size to 87, and soften will be 15. Change the gloss contour to the last one in the last row. Change your highlight mode so that it's 0% opacity, and your shadow mode will be vivid light. Change the color here to a burgundy color. I will be using 410412. And the opacity will be 38%. Now let's add an inner shadow. Change the blend mode to lighter color. And the color will be F8C549. Change the opacity to 100%. Now for angle, we are going to change this to -90. And make sure use global light is unchecked. For distance, change it to 8 and size will be 59. For noise, change it to 43%. Now let's add an inner glow. Change the blend mode to color dodge. and the opacity will be 99%. Change the color here to CEB 888. Change the size to 76 pixels. And now change the gloss contour to the second to last one in the last row. Now go to satin. Change the blend mode to vivid light. And the color will be CEB 888. And I'll change my opacity to 99%. Change the distance to 147 and the size to 202. Make sure invert is unchecked. Now for gloss contour, change it to this one in the first row. Now let's add a gradient overlay. Now for my first color stop, use 350000. And then for my second color stop, use CEB 888. Now let's add an outer glow. Change the blend mode to overlay. And the opacity is 100%. Change this color to CEB 888. Change the spread to 2 and the size to 54. For contours, select the second one in the first row. Now let's add a drop shadow. And we will be using the default color, and the opacity is 91%. Change the distance to 51 and the size to 59. Change the noise to 17 and click OK. Now we're going to go over here to this duplicated layer and make it visible again, and double click this layer as well and select stroke. Change the size to 4 and the position is outside. And now we're going to change the color to CEB 888. Now we're going to add a color overlay. Change the color to 782F40. And click OK. Now we're going to add a motion blur. Go to Filter, Blur, Motion Blur. The angle will be 90 degrees and the distance will be 266 pixels. Click OK. Now here I am moving this layer down so that it fits in line with my top text. Now we're gonna add a folder/group, and we will place this motion blurred layer, text layer, into its own group. So double click this folder and we will apply a bevel and emboss. Now let's add a stroke since we didn't have to change anything within bevel and emboss. Change the size to 10 and the position to inside. And the color we will use is AB1000. Now let's add an inner shadow. Change the blend mode to multiply, and the color will be 410513. Change the angle to -129 degrees. The distance will be 12. Choke will be 42 and the size will be 167. And for contour, change it to the second one in the first row. And change noise to 44. Now click on Inner Glow. Change the blend mode to Hard Mix. The opacity is 99%. And the color is 350510. Change the source to center. And then leave the rest as is. Now click on Gradient Overlay. Change the blend mode to Soft Light. And change the gradient. For the first color stop, use BA9947. And for the second color stop, use 782F40. And click OK. And this is how your text should look so far. Now go ahead and open up your Stadium image. And here I am renaming my layer. Now right click, convert to Smart Object. And now go over to Select Sky. Now go to Select Inverse and then create a mask from this image because we don't need the sky for our design. Now change your foreground to 782F40 and then change your background color to CEB888. Now go up to Filter, Filter Gallery. Now click on Accented Edges and change the width to 2, the brightness to 38, and the smoothness to 5. Now add another layer on top and we will change this one to halftone pattern. Change the size to 6 and the contrast to 29. And the pattern type will be dot. And then click OK. So drag this image over into your design. And place it at the bottom. And here I am just doing a little slight rotation here so that it looks leveled. So go ahead and place your Stadium image within a folder. And so here I will duplicate my image. And I'm going to get rid of the filter gallery that was on this image, but I'm going to keep it on my second image. So change this layer mode to Vivid Light, and the opacity, I will keep it at 100%. So here I'm just putting this in a folder just to keep everything organized. So double click this layer, this Stadium layer, and we're going to add an inner shadow. Change the blend mode to color burn, and the color I will be using is 010101. And I will change my angle to 90, the distance will be 35, the choke will be 0, and the size will be 54. And then change the contour to the very first one. And the noise will be 29. So go over to your brushes and add a mask on your folder and make sure your foreground color is set to black. And here I'm selecting one of my cloud brushes, and I will mask away the sides of my stadium and at the bottom as well. And everything is linked below, besides the images of the student athletes will be linked below down in my description box. So here I'm just clicking away with my mouse and turning my brushes so that it doesn't look too uniform with my cloud brushes. And then later on you can go through and use a softer brush to kind of get rid of those areas that you might not be able to see, like along the edges and stuff. So now you can see the colors are meshing together. So now I'm opening up the Jordan Travis image. And of course I'll give it a name and convert it to a smart object. And then up here I will go to select subject. So usually select subject is really great for quickly selecting the subject in your photo, but it's not always that great. So here I'm using my pen tool and I am clicking and dragging to form an outline of my image, just to clean up the areas where the select subject feature didn't get. So like I said, just click and drag to create a selection. And so here, once you've made a selection, click on selection and then click on add to selection. And then here I'm just going in, and this one I believe it's intersect after I make a selection, because this is the part that I don't want to keep within my image. So again, just click and click on selection and subtract. That's what I meant, subtract from selection for all the areas you do not want to keep. And so here I will create a layer mask and bring him over into my image. And I want him in the center. And then we're going to basically do the same steps that we did for the stadium for our player images as well. So take your Travis layer and duplicate it. And then on this top layer, make sure your foreground and your background has your school colors that you're using. And then go up to filter gallery. And as you can see, it auto-populated what we used last time, but for our players, we're going to change our halftone pattern so that it is different. So for our halftone pattern, it's going to be a size of 2, and the contrast will be kept at 29. and then click OK. And from here, we will change our blend mode to vivid light, and the opacity will be 70%. So now you can kind of see our colors are meshing together and it's looking like a cohesive design so far. So go ahead and put both of Travis's photos into a group or folder and double click, and here we will add a inner glow. So change this layer to color dodge, and the color I will be using is CEB 888, and then changing the source to edge, and then leaving everything else the same. So this gives it a nice glow along the edges of the player. So now I will repeat this process for the rest of the players and for Norvell as well. So here I have Keon Coleman, and I am going to convert to a smart object, then select subject, and I will be repeating this process like I did. I'm going to select my selection tool here and then make sure I use the subtract so I can get rid of what I don't want in the image. And then I'll be going back and using my pen tool to clean up the selection. And click on add to selection because I wanted to keep that part. So here I'm just going around the elbow, around the area that wasn't masked initially. So now I'm going to create a mask, and I will drag his image over into my document as well. And like I said previously, I'm going to follow the same steps that I did for Travis's images. So here I'm going back up to the stadium image, and I'm going to bring back a portion of the stadium to kind of cover up Keon's foot area. So here, go ahead and duplicate your layer and then go up to filter gallery, and we're going to use the settings that's already there. And then you're going to change this layer to vivid light. And then the opacity will be 70%, and we will place both of his images within its own folder. Of course, we're trying to keep everything organized here. And then here you can kind of see where I kind of did something wrong, but I went back on my original Coleman layer and the opacity was accidentally set to 70%, so I had to bring this back up to 100. So here I'm going to right click, copy layer style, and then right click, paste layer style, so Keon's has that same glow around the edge. So now I'm going to open up Johnny Wilson's image, and of course giving it a name and converting it to a smart object. And then select subject. And here I will be using the pen tool again to clean up the edges. And as you can see here, I am speeding through this process, since hopefully the first two that I did, you kind of have a gist on how to use the pen tool. And so bring it over into your document here and duplicate Wilson's image, and again, apply the filter gallery. And then we'll use the default settings and then change this layer to vivid light. But this time I'm going to change the opacity to 30% because I felt like it was too bright at 70. So here I'm just going to go ahead and save my document, just so, because you know how sometimes Photoshop may crash unexpectedly, so make sure you save. I'm going to fast forward, as you can see here, and I've added some more players like Fisk, like Burst, Benson, and some others as well. And as you can see, I went back up to my Doke image and brought back in more of the stadium. So now for the last and final person, I will be adding Coach Norvell to the top. And I will place him behind all of the players. So duplicate his layer and go to filter, filter gallery, click OK. And I will change his to vivid light with an opacity of 30%. And then go ahead and place his in a folder or within its own group, because we're keeping everything organized. And then right click paste layer style, so that it picks up the inner glow from all the other athletes that we used. So now this is how your design should look so far, but we need to add a little bit more at the bottom. So here I'm going to type out the word Seminoles, and I will be using the font Airstream. Change your font size to 268, and everything will be title case. And then make sure you change your settings back to the default, like the baseline shift. Make sure it's at 0. The vertical scale is at 100%, and the spacing is set to 0. So change the color to FFD981 and place it in the center. So now we're going to find the Florida State top text layer and right click and copy layer style. And then go back to the Seminoles layer and right click paste layer style. But we're going to change up the gradient overlay for this one. So click on gradient overlay. And for the first color stop, we will change this to 624516. And then for the second color stop, we will leave this one as is and click OK. So now we're going to type out 2023 ACC champions. Change this to Sheep Man, and the size should be 36, and the spacing will be 760. And make sure it is in all caps. And place this under Seminoles. So here I'm just selecting everything, kind of pulling it up a little bit, and then going back in on the stadium and masking away that bottom portion. Change your font color to FBF1CB. Now we're going to use our rectangle tool, and we will create a divider here at the bottom. And we will change the color so that it is FFD981. So move it so that it's in the center. and create a mask. And on your mask layer, get a soft brush and fade away the outside edges. Now here we're going to add a outer glow. And use the default settings. Now we're going to add a new layer on top and name it lens flare. So go to your brushes, and for your foreground we will change this color to FBF1CB. And then go over to your brushes and select some lens flares and start placing them on your design. So here I'm just going around and placing them on the word Florida State and over some of the players. So now we're going to add an inner glow to this layer. And now let's add an outer glow. Change this layer to Vivid Light. And the opacity should be 76. Change the color to FFBD48. Change the size to 8, and the contour will be the very first one. And now click OK. So this is how our design is looking, but it's missing some texture. So place your entire design within a group except for your color fill layer. So rename this, and I'm naming it FSU. And the first thing I'm going to do is open up my red sky image. And then go ahead and give it a name. Drag it over into your document and resize it so that it covers your entire design. So right click on this sky layer and create clipping mask. Change this layer to lighten and opacity 30%. As you can see in this video, I did soft light, but I'm going to come back later and correct it. So open up the snow on the ground image, rename it, and bring it back over into your document. And again, right click and create clipping mask. Change this layer to soft light with an opacity of 30%. So go ahead and duplicate this layer. Change the sky back to normal. And the opacity will be 100%. And like I told you earlier, change this first sky image back to lighten because I had it wrong initially. And the opacity will be 40%. So back on the duplicated snow layer that's at the bottom of the design, we're back on the snow layer. We're going to right click, create clipping mask for the sky, and then change this layer to multiply. And the opacity will be about 35%. So On the fiery sky layer, we will use a soft brush to mask away the edges, because of course when you print it, you don't want those sharp edges. So go ahead and mask away the edges. If you like what you saw today, make sure you click that like button and also subscribe, and make sure you click that bell icon to be notified of every time I drop a new video. Thanks for watching.